Welcome to Defenders TV Podcast, episode 79, where we're looking at Luke Cage, season 1, episode 5, just to get a rep.
You think I'm holding back? You think I'm holding back? I'm out to save you.
Welcome back, Defenders! It's Defenders TV Podcast, episode 79, and once again, for the third time in a row, almost like it's happening in a row, I am in control of the opening. This is Chris, one of your hosts, and we're today, in episode 79, we are looking at Luke Cage, season 1, episode 5, just to get a rep.
I'm one of your hosts, John. Hello.
And I'm your final host, Derek. I ain't going nowhere.
Ah, good. Because I have a question for both of you. Before we even kick off this podcast, just to get a rep, are we talking about, like, the reps on, like, weights here or reputation? You know, I'm not quite sure. I think, like, if Luke Cage needs to build out some muscles, do you think he does, like, just one single rep of, like, a washing machine?
The man does a lot of reps, I'm sure. But this is definitely, about reputation. It's once again connected to the Gangstar song, Just to Get a Rep. So I'll be talking about that in my normal little slot about the music later on, but yes, it is reputation.
Yeah, and nothing to do with reps and sets.
No.
But the reputation is set.
By the end of this episode, it is, yeah.
It certainly is.
Definitely.
Damn, he looks good in a bloody suit. Although I did think it was slightly tight at one point. I thought the tailoring was a bit off.
Oh, Dapper Dan does not do bad tailoring.
No, not Dapper Dan. No, it was a gorgeous suit, but like you could see in the barbershop when he buttoned up the suit jacket that he could only do one button.
Yes.
And not both. And then he had to undo it in case it like flew off because it was rubbing against his bulletproof skin.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. I don't think that the measurements are wrong. I'm not sure whether you're supposed to button up two buttons or not. I never button up two buttons. I've never had a two-button
what I mean
coat
is
before.
it was a tightly tailored suit, which was very crisp.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you have to have the body to hang it on. So Dapper Dan was spot on.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
No, there's no criticism of Dapper Dan, I hasten to add.
And on that note, if you are joining us for the first time, welcome. And what the hell are you doing? We're 5 episodes in. Wow, you have loads more to listen to. But if you are joining us, welcome. This is a podcast where 3 friends come together, typically to defend, well, the Defenders, but the Defenders TV podcast, literally as it is. But Derek, can you tell the guys where else they can find us?
If you want to subscribe to the podcast, you can subscribe to us through our iTunes link over at defenderstvpodcast.com/iTunes. Or if you want to subscribe to us through your Android device, you can just subscribe to it over on our website at defenderstvpodcast.com, or find us in any good or evil podcast catcher just by searching for Defenders TV Podcast, Luke Cage, Jessica Jones, Daredevil. We should come up through any of those searches. Please join us for all of our episodes. We've got 5 in the bag and another 7 to go. Really been enjoying it so far.
100%. Can't agree more.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic.
And if you want to send us any feedback, you can email us to feedback@defenderstvpodcast.com. Or join us over in our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/DefendersTVPodcast. I think it's about time to get into the episode, boys.
But before you do that, don't forget, guys, you can also go to our website, defenderstvpodcast.com, and leave voicemail for us. 90 seconds of your thoughts and feedback directly into the ears of the other Defender cast listeners out there.
Mm-hmm. Good point, Chris. It's the one I always forget to mention it the first time.
No problem. Okay, guys, well, look, before we get into it, so after the events of episode 4, Luke's here. So let's let the guys know who the writer was, who the director was, and John, give us a lovely synopsis, if you will.
Absolutely. I'll give you the details behind who was on the show. We have Jason Horich as a writer for this episode. He worked with Chio Coker over on Southland, and with Ben McKenzie from Gotham, John. So we have a little Gotham crossover.
Wow, yeah,
there.
a little crossover.
Yeah. And the episode was directed by Mark Jobst. And we, as the Defenders, will know Mark Jobst from the episode he directed of Daredevil Season 2. One of my favorite episodes of Season 2, New York's Finest, the episode with Frank and Daredevil on the rooftop of New York's Hell's Kitchen, having their discussion. Yeah, that awesome episode, which also included the battle sequence through the hallway and down the stairs. Awesome moment. A big scene with the meetup of Claire Temple and of Foggy Nelson at at the hospital where there's a gang members who are battling against each other. Yeah, you remember that episode? Yeah, so lots and lots of dealings. And he got to deal with Claire Temple before, so that's quite cool. He has that little connection over there in the Daredevil world.
That's actually really interesting, because knowing that was one of our probably favourite episodes of season 2 of Daredevil, especially some of the more dramatic monologues back and forths. And now actually, I didn't know that before, but now seeing that, then it plays quite good homage to this episode as well, in terms of the style of the shot and the pans, in terms of a certain scene in the church. But we'll talk about that later.
Yes, we shall.
Yeah. John, do you want to give us a synopsis?
Sure. Claire Temple arrives in Harlem to visit her mother, Soledad Temple. Confiding in her mother about saving a bulletproof man in Hell's Kitchen, she explains her growing need to help the heroes that walk the streets of New York. Just as she glimpses on TV the incredible sight of an unscathed Luke Cage emerging from a collapsed building. However, not everyone is pleased to see Luke Cage alive, and the shocked Cornell Stokes, aka Cottonmouth, hits back at Luke, extorting the citizens of Harlem to cover his debts and to recover the money stolen by Cage. As the heat rises in Harlem, Shades recognizes Cage from Seagate Prison and warns Stokes of the damage to his reputation, offering Stokes ways and means to deal with Cage. But as Stokes becomes more obsessed with Luke Cage, the inevitable clash takes place. First on the streets of Harlem, then in Cottonmouth's club, Harlem's Paradise, and finally during Pop's memorial, where Cage delivers a eulogy that humiliates Stokes in front of the people of Harlem. War has been declared.
Thank you very much, John. For any of our new listeners, again, what the hell? Go back, listen to more. But if you want to just jump in on this episode, the way that we cover each show every time, is that we each take 5 points, be it good, bad, and different, things that we thought were funny, etc. And then we kind of go around. Typically, we usually kind of share some points, because that's unfortunately sometimes the way it works out, but you'll always get a good in-depth discussion. After that, we'll each ask each other whether we defend this episode or not. Guys, I'm gonna bogart the very first point on this, because I'm in control.
Radical.
Now, we talked about this in one of our previous episodes. I brought it up as one of my points, in that how would a street-level gang enforcer destroy an unbreakable man? Mm-hmm. And that was kind of answered in this episode.
Yes,
AKA the Judas Bullet.
And we've got our AKA back.
Yes, I always bring in AKA. I love Jessica Jones that
two
much.
AKAs.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it's AK-47 with an AKA. So, this is what I wanted to talk about. We found out in this episode that there is a thing called the Judas Bullet. They were made as part of metal fragments, or melted from metal fragments of the incident. So we can assume there's some form of probably Shatari metal in there. And we see a demonstration of a man getting shot with a bulletproof vest. And then there's a zzz kind of drilling sound. And then there's a lot of red on the screen.
Yes, there is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very awesome.
So that infers, I think, that this is how they plan to tackle the Unbreakable Man, which is interesting.
It is, isn't it? I was watching it thinking, why does Cottonmouth need a bulletproof vest? You know, why would he want one? Because Luke Cage doesn't carry guns. There's no point in him getting a bulletproof vest. And then the guy exploded. And I went, oh, that makes more sense.
And of course, it looks like a home movie as well. So I just thought it was like kind of two rednecks or something like that. Like deciding, hey, I'm going to shoot your brother or something like that. and I thought there was going to be like some horrendous accident. So yeah, it was really kind of, a bit of a surprise when like the entire left side of his body just like blew away from the rest of it. Yeah.
And the cameraman fell over as well. So we can assume the cameraman also exploded.
Oh, really?
Can we?
I don't.
Or
shockwave?
Did he shock? Was he just shocked and dropped the camera, perhaps? You just didn't see him running towards the body of the guy he shot. That's why I was a bit
wondering. It was more like the camera, and then they go, oh, I wasn't expecting that.
I thought the bulletproof vest would work.
Yeah. It's a bit interesting in this. So we know that each bullet costs a fair amount of, at least 7 figures, I think, because
easy.
Cottonmouth went per bullet, question mark, exclamation point.
That was a nice little scene, actually, where he just slides across the piece of paper with the actual figure, and it's like, whoa.
I was kind of hoping like it wasn't actually a number. It was just like shades going, your mama.
Right. Yeah.
It's gonna
Your
cost
house.
you your mama and the house and and your firstborn.
Mm-hmm. And that's pretty likely.
Well,
Remember how
it was Harlem. The cost of it was Harlem.
Oh yeah.
If he didn't get the money.
Yeah.
That's true. That is true.
A lot of money.
Yeah. And Diamondback's not going to front him for it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, I suppose, how rare is Shatari weaponry, or how rare is the metal that was used to create it? So, are they able to replicate more? You know, you can understand this is absolutely a precious material that's fallen out of the sky, or attacked out of the sky, I suppose, during the incident. So, how much more is going to arrive if the Avengers are around?
Exactly. You know? In fact, it's really rare.
I have no idea what that was.
It's Bugs Bunny.
Oh, now I get it. You have to kind of drag us along. It's okay, chap.
Oh my goodness, nobody gets my jokes, as you will find, listeners. And certainly if you're new to it, no one gets my jokes.
It's okay. Someday we will.
But I did like how they described it. You know, if you wanted to shoot God, that's what you'd use. You know, this is the bullet that you'd use. Wasn't that the description?
Yeah.
These are the gods on Earth. So the Defenders and the Avengers are the gods on Earth. They are the people that are, you know, that can't be killed by human weaponry. So they've now found something.
That's a really good DC reference, by the way. Well,
I know you liked it. I liked it.
Yeah, I did that. That's what I was like. Even though this is a Marvel podcast, just saying. No, there is no discord between Marvel and DC here. We love all.
Exactly.
We are a broad church.
We are a broad church. We welcome all. We even Image Comics. If you like Image Comics, so do we. Don't worry.
We're a very broad church, and we will shoot any god with one of these bullets.
With a Judas bullet. But
I thought that was a David Tennant reference.
Ooh.
Anyway.
Oh well, yeah, maybe not.
Back to you, Chris.
Now, this does put a lot of hampering on my theory that we were going to get a second powered individual. Because my whole theory was, how can you kill a man with unbreakable skin? And this seems like the way that they're going to try and kill the man with unbreakable skin. And it's not going to be another super-powered individual. Now, we could be still completely off. Diamondback has yet to be introduced. He could be powered. They still could bring in a random powered individual. Like, potentially we saw a very offshoot in one of the episodes of Daredevil season 1 of Bullseye. They still could do something like that. But I think now it's going to be more like Luke Cage is our powered man. He is our power man for this whole season.
Yeah, but I was wondering, is the test representative? The science head on me is going, you know, are they comparing like for like? I know it's Kevlar, but does that replicate Luke Cage's skin? Like, you know, I mean, I think what the Marvel Encyclopedia says, it's 3 times the hardness of like steel or whatever. So like, you know, or whatever it is, he is unbreakable. He's got a really tough skin. So is it as tough as Kevlar? Or is it more tough? So the sciencey thing in me was like, okay, is this experiment representative?
Right.
It may be, it may not be. So he could still survive. I mean, he survived the RPG pretty well. So, you know, there's one other test that they know an RPG can't kill him. So now they have to see whether the Judas will do, which is probably a higher bet given it costs, you know, an entire section of New York or, you know, city.
Yeah.
So there's that. But then I also wondered whether the reason why Diamondback was being so cagey about, fronting for Cottonmouth.
I see what you did there, by the way. Very good. Cagey.
Yeah, exactly. Is it also a threat to him, and that's why he's controlling it so tightly? And like, if he does want them, well then Cottonmouth has to lose everything.
Interesting.
I don't know. I wondered whether that was the kind of case that, you know, up till now, Diamondback is more than happy to do it. Now, okay, obviously they cost a lot, so I can understand it from that point of view as well, but just from a purely like superhero kind of bubble, I just wondered whether they're also a threat to him. that they can actually take him out. That it's his silver bullet as much as Luke Cage's.
Judging by that video, it's everybody's silver bullet. They could take out everybody. But yeah, a
normal bullet's my silver bullet.
That's true. Very true. I like what you pointed out there earlier on, Chris, that it does kind of drill in through the bulletproof coat that the guy's wearing in the video. So it doesn't just stop dead and explode, which would be where it would drop off on Luke Cage. It would bounce off him. You know, in this case, it sounds like at least that it almost drills into the body after attaching itself almost to the body. So that's probably why it's going to work on Luke, if used against him, I suppose. Shades does say, there is a cost involved in the bullet, and if you don't pay it and want Diamondback to pay for it for you, the cost of that is Harlem, doesn't he? So there is a monetary cost as well, which, because of the events of episode 3 and 4, Cottonmouth can no longer pay because he's lost a lot of money.
7 figures by 7.
Yeah. 7 figures by 7 is what he says. Yeah. That's a lot.
That's a lot.
That's 7 million.
Yeah. Or more.
Yeah. Oh, God. Yeah. Actually, well, what could it theoretically
could be 49 million possibly.
Yeah. See,
hang on a second. That doesn't sound right. 63 million sounds right, doesn't it?
Yeah. See, guys, we're comic nerds, not maths nerds. Sorry.
I'm a maths nerd.
Oh, that's okay. But okay, so this has completely upset my theory. And while I'm still hoping that John is right, that maybe the Judas bullet is Diamondback's kryptonite, so he holds it close. Mm-hmm. I now get the feeling that unless something dramatically changes, we are only seeing one powered individual. And actually, I'm okay with that.
I got a direct message today that speaks to this, Chris, over on Twitter, specifically for you, from our listener, Doug Green, who was listening to our second episode of the podcast, where you called out about Shades possibly being a superhuman character. Without any spoilers at all, just simply he said, can you tell Chris that Shades is a BAMF? And I'm going to employ our swear jar for a second. Okay. It's a badass.
Okay, so he may be powered.
There are no spoilers there.
No, there may no spoilers.
But he does want to say that you are on the right track to look at Shades, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, I'm doing a happy dance for this.
But there is no spoilers there that he may not be powered, may be still just a badass.
He gave Luke a beatdown when Luke was unpowered. So, like, if Luke loses his power for some reason, Shades can beat him down.
True.
And on that note,
yes,
given that we talked about the Judas bullet, I kind of really want to shout out, I loved Shades in this episode and his counsel that he gave with Cottonmouth, where he just gives that dose of reality to Cottonmouth. You know, you're making mistakes going after Cage and all this, and if you do this, and ask for the Judas bullet, Diamondback, he will want something from you, and he's going to ask you for Harlem, and otherwise it costs this much. It was pure non-negotiable, and I think the great thing about this was that it's really showing up, like, Cottonmouth is the big bad, but he's also a liability. He can't handle his status. He's too much about the club and the money. And now that's gone, and he's absolutely floundering around, and Shades comes in and just gives this really fantastic piece of reality to Cottonmouth, and I just really like that in this episode with everything going on. Cottonmouth is trying to step up to what Luke Cage is doing, and each time he's been made to look a fool. He's been undermined. Shades lays it bare for him, and I really enjoyed that in this episode, because I think Cottonmouth is a flawed villain, in terms of he can't handle the power that he ultimately has, and the extra and additional and the more power that he wants, he just wouldn't be able to handle it.
Absolutely. I love, there's a great moment early on in the episode where maybe somebody else is going to talk about the actual incident itself, but the first time you see Shades in the episode, where he walks up to Cottonmouth and Cottonmouth goes, I don't even know why you're here. And Shades just stares him down and says, you know exactly why I'm here. I like that they're explaining why the right-hand man of the, I guess, the kingpin of Harlem, as we think he is, which is Diamondback, why he's constantly coming up and giving advice to Cottonmouth. I like that they keep explaining it. I like that there's a great bit of power from Shades, who side by side to Cottonmouth, you probably wouldn't be scared of Shades. But the intensity coming from Theo Rossi, you can see why the counsel that's being given to him is being taken on board by Cottonmouth, definitely.
Completely. It actually, and guys, this was one of my points as well. Like, in this episode, we see Cottonmouth pretty spiraling pretty quickly.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, big time.
This episode, from a Cottonmouth baddie perspective, was paving the way for Diamondback to show up and set things right. As a big bad, Cornell Stokes seems to be pretty ineffective, especially as the episodes have gone on. Now, don't get me wrong. He's an amazing, compelling character. He's really interesting, and I love his reasoning, his rationale, the piece and section about the nightclub, why he's not giving it up, and it all ties beautifully together, tying him to the community.
Yeah.
But beyond that, especially the first, he's lost his, I want to say je ne sais quoi, but like, that's like probably a really bad way of explaining it. He's just, the spiraling ineptitude almost is kind of, it's weird. And then that leads to that kind of relationship with Shades becoming more interesting, for the power shifting.
Yeah.
I don't know, the bit that kind of only potentially could save this is that this is a man down on his luck, and like, when you've nothing to lose, you'll do anything to win.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of adage.
Absolutely.
Like, that's kind of where I'm hoping they can turn the character around. And maybe it's Chio Coker's idea that he strips, like Luke Cage has been stripped of all of his rationale, his humanity, his ties to humanity, I should say.
Yes.
But now it's being replaced with Harlem. Whereas you have Cottonmouth now, his kingdom is being torn away from him.
Absolutely.
So he is going to go with he's going to go all out to get it back, and that all out, in this case, probably is the Judas Bullet or selling Harlem to Diamondback, etc. So they have two options. For me, they need to do one of two things. One, which is make Cottonmouth go like foaming at the mouth mad, and then he goes on a vengeance trip, or Cottonmouth steps to the side and Diamondback and Shades become the big bad for the second half of the season.
Right.
Yeah.
I can see that. That's an entirely a possibility. Like, this kind of leads into my first point about the actual song that was chosen for the episode, the name of the episode. So name of the episode is Just to Get a Rep. As we've mentioned every episode so far, each of these titles are taken from Gangstar songs. Just pulled out the lyrics for this one, and so many things are standing out from the lyrics of this song as to why it was chosen for this episode. It's really interesting. It's almost as if the writer of the show took little scenes from the actual lyrics of the song. It's specifically talking about people looking at the people around them, and the type of gold chains that they're wearing, the type of jewelry that they're wearing, and looking at it and looking at a way of stealing it off them, and then walking into the neighborhood again, wearing those pieces of jewelry, showing that they have the reputation, showing that they have the rep, and that they're not people to be messed with. That is absolutely what Cottonmouth's doing at a big level, sending people out, taking all their stuff off the people of Harlem and saying it's Luke Cage's fault, so that he has his reputation restored. The people themselves, his guys that are stealing the stuff. You see the guy that steals the Major League Baseball ring. You see him wearing it and showing it off to other people, all the way through the Les Paul guitar that's stolen, that's sitting back in one of the guys' houses. It's not being returned to Cornell Stokes. He's not asking for all of that stuff. He's asking for money. Everybody around is trying to build up their reputation in the area of Harlem. So this song is absolutely perfect. There's even a point in the song where they mention somebody with blacked out windows on their Jeep. There is a truck with blacked out windows, the one that Luke Cage grabs the two guys and throws them up against the windows of. That's even in the episode. And I'm so conscious now after hearing the lyrics of the song, how much is taken out of the song for this episode. Once again, another great choice.
Yeah, and that's really cool, actually, that he's working in the lyrics of these songs as well into how aspects of the episodes play out. I mean, that's really a nice touch, I think.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's really interesting. I have to admit, my personal music taste, kind of up until a lot of this point, has been very eclectic, but hasn't featured that much gangster rap, probably that kind of style, if you want to call it that.
Mm-hmm.
But the more and more I've kind of started getting into this kind of the series, and starting looking more and more in terms of how they linked it so dramatically to the music.
Yeah.
I've just started listening to that Spotify playlist. I'm now listening to one of the artists, Chidena, from this episode. It's just, more and more it's getting the R&B it just, I have to admit, this is probably one of the most special kind of linkages I've seen by a Marvel show, or to be fair, any other show outside of like Empire or Atlanta or Childish Gambino's new TV show that launched in America recently, where he is an up and coming rapper. This is one where I've seen actually it's not about the music, but the music is so influential. It's really, really interesting.
Absolutely, yeah. You can totally tell that Chio Coco comes from a music background. The other kind of part of my point about music in the episode is just that opening with Jadana on stage at Cottonmouth's club. It's such a different kind of opening for a TV show. It's a live performance from him, singing his heart out. It's almost like Cottonmouth is choosing the bands that are going to play in Harlem's Paradise. He mentions later on about, he wants to there's no club like this. There's no black man who's ever done something like he's doing for his neighborhood, or in any neighborhood, really. He wants to get to that level of it being a location that everybody will come to. So he's watching these people perform and making sure they're singing songs that he is interested in hearing for his audience. So the song that's being sung, I think it's such a great choice. It's Long Live the Chief. So I love that the whole episode starts out with Jadana singing the song to Cottonmouth about being the boss, being the big guy. And Cottonmouth is super impressed by this song, which he feels is about himself, obviously, because it's Cottonmouth. Then it cuts to Rosario Dawson being mugged. She's also the chief of her own destiny. She walks back into her hometown, gets mugged, goes down and beats the hell out of the guy.
Yeah.
That was so
Oh, yeah,
brilliant.
she does.
So awesome.
Brilliant. And then you've got Luke, who's also his own chief of his community. He's cleaning away the rubble of Genghis Khan's, which nobody else was doing. So I love the juxtaposition of those three characters at the beginning to this song talking about Long Live the Chief. Who's the real chief here? Is it Cottonmouth because he owns the club? Is it someone like Claire Temple, who's not willing to let people pull one over on her? Or is it Luke Cage, who's helping out his community with the superpowers he's been given? Love that. Really, really cool.
Absolutely. And if I can just bring in my next point on this, because it links to the music, but also to a book watch as well, is that we have the scene where Coco, R.I.P. Coco, bullet to the head, holds up the book and talks about the benign neglect and this book about the politics and the social conditions that created hip hop. And from what I can tell after some research, that looked as though it was Can't Stop, Won't Stop by Jeff Chang. A history of the hip hop generation. Judging by the book, because it's got pink and kind of a yellowy colour on it, and it's quite distinctive.
Very cool. We will be coming out of this show with so much new music and so many new books to read after we finish doing all of our podcasts.
Absolutely. It's really, really great. It's so good. But I love how, Coco's up there talking about this and the benign neglect. He just kind of mentions to Cottonmouth, look, just let Luke Cage have his side of the street, let him sort of be the king of his castle and you be your king of your castle and your side of the street. And what does he get for it? Bullet to the head.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, a little book watch here. R.I.P. Coco.
That was such a surprise to me.
Oh, yeah.
I was not expecting a gun from under the table and a bullet through the head. It just doesn't feel like a Marvel show to have something like that happen, I suppose. But fantastic. Such a great moment for Cottonmouth and such a shock you back into the moment. Really cool. I was chilling out for the music, laughing along with, the idea that Luke Cage, the hero, has stolen all this money from Cottonmouth. He's now in poverty, basically, with only his $250,000 that he has available to hand. Poverty, I tell you. Poverty.
Them be the days, I remember when I was roughing it with just 2.5 G's sitting in my table. Like, fine.
Yeah. And then bullet to the head when someone suggests, maybe we should just leave that guy with superpowers alone and he'll leave us alone. Was he right, though? Was Coco right? Would that have been an option? Because I don't think so.
No.
Nope. I have to admit, I love this scene. Because it was so juxtaposed between, you've literally gone from great music and then into this kind of business meeting scene. And I was like, okay, he's making some like rational, logical, interesting debate. And I was expecting Cottonmouth to do the more, this mass city kind of like, how dare he do this to me? But then just that whipping out of the pistol, I was just like, oh, this is gonna get good. I was expecting him kind of like very much a Scarface situation where he takes out two and then just goes, how dare you all?
Kills them all.
Kills them all, kind of.
Cottonmouth was so pissed in this episode. Really was.
Yeah, it was just, and it's a really interesting theory when you come to think of it. But then, as you said, Derek, do we think Luke Cage would do this? No, not in a million years.
Not at all.
Not at all. He wants Cottonmouth out of Harlem and to stop messing with them, as he
I know
says.
that this is his William Shatner moment. It's like, calm, because of what's happened. I mean, like, it doesn't matter. It really is.
Right.
But I think I butted in there, Chris. I think I stepped in front of you. So what's your next point?
No problem at all, because I think I'm going to talk about something we all want to talk about. Claire's back!
Yes.
Yeah, she is.
It's Claire.
Yeah. Rosario Dawson's Claire Temple finally made her entrance. I was expecting this, like, once I didn't see her in the last episode, I didn't want to say anything, because I'm like, maybe she's like one of these flash in the pan kind of, we just knew she would be in, like, just from like episode 8 to like the last 5 episodes.
Right.
But no, she's here. The funny thing actually was, and I wanted to bring this up, I think we've brought it up a few times in our previous podcast, but I wanted to kind of share for anyone who's just joining us for Luke Cage. Claire's character actually started in the comics as a supporting character for Luke Cage.
That's right.
So she started in Hero for Hire number 2, and I believe someone may need to correct me on that, but if it was Luke Cage Hero for Hire number 2, it was 1972-ish. So she started there, and it's great to see her now back in this Harlem setting where her character originated. I'm really interested to see how they're going to bring her coming together with Luke in this, because she had that lovely speech where what do I want to do? I need to do what I need to do, telling her mother about the experience at the hospital. Yeah. And her going, I've saved a blind man who can see better than other people because of his senses. I saved a man who took a shotgun to the head and healed in a few hours. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, they are full on bringing her towards this character of Night Nurse. Like, this is our MCU Night Nurse 100%. Now, that's not saying it's going to be the only Night Nurse, because we may see other, but as far as I can see, they are bringing her towards this character, which is fantastic. And being on Twitter and Facebook, I've seen some people kind of give out about this huge unnecessary exposition of who she is and why she's there.
Okay.
But I'm kind of kicking back on that, and I'm always open to kind of debate with people. But I saw this, it was actually outside our group, and it was just this kind of back and forth, and I was like, no, she's there because, and they're doing this exposition because people may have not actually watched Jessica Jones. They may have not watched Daredevil. Absolutely. You need to introduce this character. This could be someone's gateway entrance to the MCU. They'll go back and watch Daredevil, go back and watch Jessica Jones. But if you don't introduce her, she then just becomes a bit part character.
Yeah. Absolutely. Totally. And I mean, it's done in a way where, you know, she's coming back and she's mentioning all this stuff to her mum. So, I mean, it's done in a really, like, kind of regular way, which makes sense. So, yeah, I mean, like, I know, look, we all need a little reminding from time to time as well. So, I mean, like, this was a nice little way of introducing it. And I mean, that opening scene where, you know, she gets mugged and then, you know, lo and behold, you know, did this mugger ever think that he was going to get effectively, you know, foot to the kahunas and so on, which they really do show.
Yeah. I feel bad for that stuntman. Yeah, I think that was a real kick that they like should have been held, and they just left it in going, it looks too real, boys. Everyone's going to cover themselves after that one.
As the sweet sound of justice, of cracking walnuts, floats across Harlem, as Claire Temple gets her revenge on this mugger. Like, fantastic little opening. I loved it.
Oh, absolutely. And great to see Claire back. One of the other things, I think we talked about it in episode 4, as to where Luke Cage took place in comparison to Daredevil and Jessica Jones. And we knew it was going to be, we knew it was after the end of season 1, but this confirms it's after the end of pretty much of season 2 of Daredevil as well. So, Claire confirms that she was in the hospital. They hand attacked, the death of one of her compatriots. She lost her job because she wouldn't go along with the board. So all of that happened towards the end of Daredevil season 2. So now we know this is tying up much later in time. So quite a significant amount of time since Jessica Jones happened and Daredevil season 1 happened. So I thought that was quite a nice little touch there as well.
No, and I actually think they did this really well. They did a better job here picking up her story in the aftermath of Daredevil than I think in Jessica Jones or any of that, kind of where they've introduced her as a character.
Right.
You can see when she's discussing that topic of the hospital attack, it's left a deep impact on her. Like, again, this could be me reading into it, a kind of overboarding on the kind of how much I love sometimes geeking on these shows. The actress Rosario Dawson, as she plays this character, when she did that kind of, like, she puts her hand in her head, and you can see that she's like, I've lost everything because these dead men who came back to life and dressed as ninjas have destroyed my life and my hospital, and now I'm crawling back to my mother's cafe in Harlem. I think it was a great portrayal again showing another strong lead of a female within the MCU, something that potentially sometimes in the movies, within the MCU movies, that they do say sometimes the female characters in there are not as strong. I always disagree because Scarlett Johansson's Natasha Romanoff is potentially the scariest woman ever made in the MCU.
She is awesome. I think a lot of that criticism comes from all of the conversations after an Avengers movie seem to be about when's the Hulk getting his own movie, and she is just as badass and has been in every film since Iron Man 2, yet her solo film hasn't come along yet. No. Don't understand why. And the amount of time she's been left out of merchandising has always been a problem.
Yes.
It's kind of weird, but yes, we're getting some great, strong feminine heroines, I guess. Claire Temple has been fantastic right the way through from Daredevil season 1. Just as at the eyes of the street on these heroes. I like that her choice here, that she tells her mom, her choice for her future career is, well, I want to help those superheroes that help other people. I don't know how you apply for that. I don't know if there's a LinkedIn group for that, do you think?
I'd say so. Heroes for hire.
I'm sure.
Heroes for hire, possibly.
Yeah.
We'll get you a job as a hero in 24 days or less. Just to close out on this one, and I'll kind of throw it back to you guys if you have anything else. It's going to be a slow burn between her and Luke, because the question I have now is, we are literally getting the Luke square, not a Luke love triangle, a love square, where we're going to have Jessica far off in the opposite corner. You have Claire on one side, and you have Misty Knight on the other. And I'm like, are we going to get a love triangle with a small corner for Jessica in the later future? Is this where potentially this tryst is going to happen? It could be an interesting fun. I don't know what they're going to do, but I think a relationship may have been hinted at in some of the previous storytelling and trailers, etc. If not, a really good friendship. I'm interested to see where they take it.
Yeah, because, at the moment, if Misty Knight is in that triangle, it's going to be angry sex.
Ooh.
Because, she really is not feeling Luke Cage. It's kind of one of my points, so I might as well say it now. Yeah, sure, I'll do it now. Yep. I love her antagonism towards Luke Cage. I think it's really kind of special, and quite unique, because she's one of the good guys as well. Yet, she absolutely distrusts and is suspicious of Luke Cage. Even after the memorial service to Pop, she's like going, what you did in there is like reckless, it's wrong, and you're gonna destroy Harlem. You might think you're saving it. She's not giving him an inch at all. And no slack has been cut for him. And I'm loving that. I love the fact that she is this kind of sort of against Luke Cage.
Yeah.
Even to the point where she says, don't go to Pop's funeral. He's the guy's in-law, he's his son-in-law, for goodness sake. It was really harsh.
Yeah, that was so off. That made me go, oh, really?
Yeah.
That was just that was a comment that you would kind of, either she'll apologize it for later, or it was kind of well, you're just way out of line now.
But his diss back to her after the conversation at the end of the episode, which was, I'm sorry that, I'm sorry our relationship didn't work out the way you wanted it to because of the way you're working. By now, I'm back into Pop's barbershop. That was such a diss to Misty Knight, as if all the stuff that she's been saying to him is because he won't sleep with her again, basically.
Yeah.
See you later, love. I'm off back
which
to
probably
back to the
makes her
barbershop.
even more
So much more
angry.
Absolutely.
I love the fact that your ass might be bulletproof, but Harlem isn't.
Mm-hmm.
Harlem isn't bulletproof, isn't unbreakable, and you just declared World War III in there. Just the way she is against him is fine. Yeah, it's almost like the Stormtrooper effect in, like, Star Wars, where, the Death Star blows up and it's all woohoo for the Rebel Alliance, yet, there's people's fathers and daughters and all that kind of thing in there. Being the average detective or copper on the beat trying to deal with the fallout from the incident or from any of these other types of things that are going on. And we've said this in Daredevil, we've said this in Jessica Jones to some extent, where it's like they're having to deal with this fallout, and that obviously just gets their back up and makes them resentful of these people who walk around and go, sure, I can do this because I've got unbreakable skin. And it's like, you understand where it comes from.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's one of the great things about these, these Marvel Netflix shows is that it brings it down to the street level. It brings it down to the reality that the MCU can't on, a 2-hour movie and so on. And I love this interaction that here we have one of the good guys, Misty Knight, being absolutely, properly awful to one of the other good guys, Luke Cage.
Yeah.
And you can get both their sides. Really good.
Absolutely. But there is that kind of odd moment when she finds the photograph of Reva in the rubble of Genghis Khan's and looks at it and goes, who the heck is this woman, to Luke Cage, basically? Who's she? Why is she important to you? And it almost is like, why did you sleep with me when you had the photograph of this woman in your apartment? It's like as if she doesn't understand this must be someone really important in Luke's life.
No, I think she does understand that she is. That actually he could have been cheating.
Maybe, yeah, maybe that's it.
That she thinks, like, it could be along those lines. That's why she's angry. It's just another layer of her anger. And that's why, if there's going to be a love triangle here, Misty represents the angry, I hate you sex going on. or, the possible make-up sex after an absolute, utter, massive shindig of an argument.
Yeah. That sounds like Misty Knight to me.
Yeah. Derek, do you want to give us your next point?
Just a quick one for me, and not really treated like a huge moment in the episode, but it kind of was. Luke Cage is lifting up pieces of Genghis Khan's over his head and clearing up an entire area on his own. I like that there's a little touch of either the tourists or some of the locals with their camera phones out, taking photographs of this superhero, showing off his abilities in the street. Not hidden, not wearing a mask, not wearing a costume. He is standing out in the middle of the street showing off his superpowers. Big time. That didn't seem to get any kind of play on it. There wasn't like spinning newspapers going, man, clears up building with his own hands, the kind of stuff you would see in most movies. But he's standing out in the middle of the street going, I'm Luke Cage, I'm a superpowered superhuman,
Yeah, no, I have to agree with you on this. This got me a bit annoyed until I thought a bit more about it in that, okay, this has probably happened in the guts of about 3 to 4 days. Mm-hmm. The whole show so far.
Yeah.
So, news is not spreading that fast. It's on the TV. But that video that was probably that happened where he was lifting would happen on the same day as Pops' funeral of this episode. So the Facebook virality of man lifts building overhead probably is only going to hit the next day and the next day. And it's that building of he is the man of the people. What got me in thinking about this was so we've seen that camera bit there. There was a very quick flash where he's holding one of Cottonmouth's cronies up by the neck at the end to get the MLB ring back. Yep. And that flashes to someone filming it as well on a phone. And so these are all going to add up. So he is now in the public. He's the public facing hero. Mm-hmm. Compare this completely to the rest of the team, to the rest of the soon to be defenders. Jessica's a private eye, but she doesn't like getting her number out. She doesn't seek kind of fame. Yeah. Daredevil is a man of the shadows.
Yeah.
Shadow himself, Luke is now going to become that man wearing suit, friendly face of the Defenders. Like, Danny Rand, I'm assuming, probably won't be known as Danny Rand the Iron Fist as a hero. He'll probably be vigilante-esque kind of man in mask to some degree.
Yeah. Potentially.
The only thing is, like, so to Harlem, Luke is going to be, I'm here to protect you. Like, I'm going to be that hero that Harlem deserves.
Or, I'm Luke Cage, I am Power Man. As we said in an earlier episode. He's standing out there with no mask, no costume at all. He's like the Iron Man of the Defenders, basically.
Yeah, we can all hope.
100%. But I think this is what's going to be different about him. It's almost like with the fall of Cottonmouth, we're going to see the rise of Power Man, of Luke Cage. But there's only going to be so much recognition you can take. Let's look at episode 13. Okay, if we go all the way there, we're going to...
No, you're not allowed. You've got 7 more podcasts to do, Chris.
No. Okay, let's imagine episode 13 in the far distance, somewhere over the rainbow. So looking at episode 13, if we can imagine that at the end, Luke has cleaned up Harlem, he's cleaned up Diamondback, he's cleaned up Cottonmouth, he's got rid of all the gangs.
Yeah, he cleans it well.
He does, especially in that suit. But imagine then, it's very much like Hydra, in that you cut off one head, another shall rise. And by being the face of Harlem, the hero for hire, you can expect that every time he destroys one gang, another one's going to think it's bigger and better than him. Like, it's kind of the law of diminishing returns almost, or there is another law that add more and it's always going to need more heat to kind of thing. It's that kind of situation that you get yourself into.
It's that idea of, okay, you put on the bat suit, therefore you get the Joker.
Yes,
it's the
exactly.
law of escalation.
The law
that kind of thing. And that, the cops have a taser, then the criminals have a knife. The cops move to a gun, the criminals carry a submachine gun, that kind of thing.
Exactly.
You bring sort of tank type things on and
You get a bulletproof man and they bring a rocket launcher to blow up Connie's.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I can see what you mean. By the end of the season, what is going to be there, going to be facing him down. I think you made the point earlier on a little bit as well, Chris. There's a possibility here that by, another 2 episodes and Cottonmouth's going to step out of the way and there will be a full-on gang warfare versus Luke Cage and they'll be throwing everything at him. The multitude of Judas bullets that are being stored over at Diamondback's warehouse or wherever he's storing them, they could all be just fired at Luke Cage and that could be the end of him, so there will be some more escalation. I don't think Cottonmouth's the be all and end all of what's going on in Harlem. And I also don't think that he's going to get to clean up the entire city of Harlem by the end of the series. There's still going to be some other big bats out there.
And you've still got the Latino gang that we were introduced to 2 episodes ago.
Yeah. Semicolon.
Yeah. What semicolon?
Colon.
Oh, yes.
See, another one of my jokes, just zooming by. It's pretty sad, yeah. It doesn't get much better than this, ladies and gentlemen.
Can we just call him Semicolon then? And coming now.
Because he was short.
Cottonmouth versus Semicolon. That is a
He's
fight
pretty short. I like Semicolon. It's pretty good.
So, Derek, do you have another point there?
Just a quick one. Again, Raphael Scarf is now under investigation by Internal Affairs. So that whole piece of what happened in the last couple of episodes is not going unnoticed within the NYPD. Quite a big moment for the partner of Misty Knight.
Big time, yeah.
I like that it is the captain and the lieutenant that track Misty Knight down and tell her, her partner's under investigation. So she is defending him as she would. This is a partner for many years by the sounds of things. They've got a pretty good rapport between the two of them. So they look like they've worked together for many, many years.
I love her turn of phrase here. I know he might be salty, but dirty, or a really nice little turn of phrase really there, yeah.
And on our Wire Watch, as our other one of our watches for the last couple of episodes, we also have another returning character from The Wire in this episode. We
certainly do. This actually is on to my next point, which is short as well. It's the cameos. We have here, from The Wire, we have Sonia Sohn, who played Detective Shakima Greggs, or Kima. She portrayed one of the detectives on the Baltimore police force, which was really good. And again, really at that moment as well for a black actress. She was also portraying a lesbian detective in a relationship, which was again a huge statement within a TV show as well. So
Absolutely.
really, really good.
Cool to see her back.
To see her back again in the force. This time NYPD instead of BPD.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's right.
And there was another cameo, and he's alive, damn it. It's a miracle. It was, Mike Britt, who plays Walter Bankston from Kimmy Schmidt. He was here as Eddie Axton, the character with the MLB ring, drunk. Really nice little exchange between him and Luke Cage, in his daughter's shop, who's trying to really kind of, promote him and to earn money, and he's all kind of fairly down on his luck. But it was nice to see him in this different kind of role, because obviously with Kimmy Schmidt being kind of an off-kilter comedy, which I have to say I really like.
Yeah. And he did the theme tune for it, which was shown for all 26 episodes. Kind of good to see him there.
Yeah, so 2 really good cameos here, for me. Yeah. And a continuing, another actor that comes from The Wire, or at least had their origins in The Wire.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so Chris, what's your next point?
Okay, I'm gonna take you on a journey. I'm gonna do very much like the SAT or the Leaving Cert in Ireland or the GCSEs. I'm gonna do an English class here where I'm gonna talk to you about recurring themes and topics in Marvel's Luke Cage. Yeah, I know, it's gonna get interesting, but go with me. This is going to be interesting. So, since the beginning, we've been talking about the kind of some of the recurring themes and what we think are some of the big topics. So, obviously the big one is music. Like, we can see that both in the score, in the song choice, in the titles, in the intersecting kind of like some of the very violent scenes with the R&B, with some of the live music that's being performed in Harlem's Paradise. And it's a great choice. But we know this is probably Cheo Coker's kind of showing the golden kind of gem that is the heart of Harlem in terms of music is the core. It's ingrained into the city. Very much like people can say like, Guinness is the core ingrained in the city of Dublin. Well, maybe not so much, but you kind of see where I'm going with it.
There's some streets it's pretty ingrained in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And battered burgers as well.
Anyway, as we've kind of gone into the kind of 5 episodes in so far, it's kind of more and more we can see that there's especially the music is especially underlined in this episode. And I think we touched on this earlier, and we touched on why I think this was funny, but it's the theme of it that I find more, okay? So, Cottonmouth's Lackey starts talking about, as John said, the book about politics and the rise of hip hop. And the irony behind that is that Cornell has a massive painting of Biggie there, and he has a deaf ear for this legacy of hip hop and how he could apply it to the situation.
Nice.
And this is the bit I'm kind of getting into, that there's a huge contrast and there's a huge theme of legacy as a whole, of building a legacy, controlling a legacy, and a legacy evolving.
Absolutely.
In that, so Cornell Cottonmouth is not seeing that legacy. He wants to build a legacy, but he's not seeing how hip hop is part of his legacy, how music is part of his legacy. In contrast to Luke, who's constantly reminding himself of that, like, he calls out the parts of, like, when he's talking to the assailant with the gun to the back of his head in about episode 2 or 3, where he starts talking about Atticus and the legacy of Black Americans who came out of Harlem, and some of the most prominent. Like, he starts talking, and he's constantly talking about the legacy of who he is and who he should be. And then he starts talking about Pop's legacy and how, and especially in this episode, and this is what I loved. He started talking about when he was in the church, how Pop's legacy hangs over like a large shadow over Harlem. He's touched not just Luke and Luke's journey from convicted felon to husband of Reva to working in the barbershop to being on the run. Like, he's helped Luke throughout his journey, and more than that, he's helped Harlem. And we learn that how he took people in. I think this is the flipping moment of how Luke decided that, okay, he's going to build his own legacy, or at least a legacy on top of Pop's. Kind of like that he decided he wants to be, he now knows what type of hero he wants to be, and he starts seeing in this episode where he's wearing this pristine suit, walking around, trying to make up and make Harlem a better place.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Like, it's a really interesting idea. I mean, it even goes to the flashback where you have Pops and Cottonmouth and Wilfredo as well. And it's looking at that, in terms of their own legacy within that community and how they've gone from being those boys or kids, to, you know, Pop being in the barbers in Switzerland, Wilfredo effectively dead, and leaving his son, the Chico, you know, under the tutelage, in the hairdressers of Pop's, barbers. Mm-hmm. I think even, and then Cottonmouth, and obviously then what he's currently on to do, but then how, like you say, that difference between Luke and Cottonmouth, it's there also between Cottonmouth and his cousin Mariah Dillard. I mean, those scenes on the bench where she's saying, I want us to have this legacy and leave a legacy on Harlem as a politician. And politicians are like that. They want to have that legacy there. Or just where she says, you know, your first love is money. Mine is my name. That's harder to get back after, you know, Luke has gone in and robbed the bank, you know? But it's also what Chiricahua is doing with this show. Mm-hmm. You know, there's a legacy here in the same way as what The Wire did. You know, that he wants to try and show that legacy on this show within the context of a superhero movie. As well. So I'm totally agree with you there, Chris, on this. And it's a really, cool theme.
Yeah, definitely. I think you could replace the word legacy with rep, and then it would be exactly on point for this episode.
Oh, yes.
Indeedy doodly.
But, much like rep, so Luke's currently a man of the people, and he has them on his side, but how long will the rep last, or how long will the legacy last, now that he's put a massive target on himself? And that's the bit I'm really kind of like, how long will the rep last? And more importantly, as you said, is he doing this all just to get a rep?
I like it.
So, John, do you want to wrap us up with your last point?
I do. It's the face-off.
Ooh.
The face-off between Cottonmouth and Luke Cage, you know, is occurring throughout this episode. It starts on the streets. I kind of had this in the synopsis, but, you know, it starts on the streets where, you know, he's taking the money, he's pointing the finger at Luke Cage, and Luke Cage retaliates. Then it becomes face to face in the club where he's surrounded, by the goons of Cottonmouth. Cottonmouth's on the balcony up above, and that's where you see Shades recognizing Carl Lucas from Seagate. But, you know, that face-off moves to there, and, you know, there's some real sort of beatdown of, and sort of, trash talk that's kind of going on. And again, I suppose coming back to, Shades' influence here, there's that moment where he says, you can't make this guy make you look stupid. The more you go after him, the more his name rings out, like yours used to. Like, that's such a good line. I thought it was amazing, and all coming from this face-off between Luke Cage, and that is ultimately undermining Cottonmouth. And it sort of, it crescendos in the church at Pops's memorial, where through the eulogy, you have these competing ideas of what Harlem should be. And the one that rings out true, is Luke Cage's, which is, I believe in the people who make Harlem what it is. It's not that Harlem imposes itself on the people.
Absolutely.
Which, and I thought that was just really good, you know, and he talks about Pop, taking the children in as rough diamonds, buffing them up and sending them out all sparkling and stuff. I thought that was really good. And it also just got me thinking, is that what he did with Diamondback? Is that also, are we going to find out that Pop did that with Willis Stryker or Diamondback as he's now known? But did he do it at a time before he had his own sort of road to Damascus moment? And maybe he actually sent him down a darker path. But nonetheless still bright and shiny, taken from the rough, from the earth, and turned into this gem. So I just thought that was an interesting thing. It was an interesting analogy that was used, and just because it was diamonds and we know that Diamondback is in it, I just wondered if there's any connection there. So I'm really looking forward to seeing whether that happens. But I mean, that is, I just thought it was really nice throughout this whole episode.
Yeah, absolutely. The battle between these two characters have been great so far. They haven't shied away from keeping our two major, hero and villain apart throughout the season so far. We've had many scenes together, but this episode particularly was really, really strong. I've got it down as the eulogy battle, like the lip sync battle kind of idea. It's like you go first. It's like a rap battle, basically. They go up and do the eulogy, and you can see from Cornell Stokes and how he's delivering that speech to the community of Harlem that he believes he's going to win back the people to his side. He believes they're going to turn to realize he's just doing it in their best interest. But when you have Luke Cage going up and showing them what someone in your best interest is there for, to provide a central place where your community can get together and share and grow strong together, not to lead them, not to take their money and control them. He's there to share with them and help them, just like Pop did. You can see the difference in the crowd that's there. You know, this is the epic rap battle. This is the winner. Luke Cage crowned on stage right there, and Stokes ain't going to be happy about it.
Oh, completely. It is the epic rap battle without the battle almost. Like, I was expecting some Cornell to kind of just midway through Luke's kind of eulogy, just kind of go, rah! And then just like, like it would be that scene where, like, again, Scarface, how dare you say this about me? Like
at least they respected no violence in the church. You know, there was that moment I was a bit concerned that Aisha was going to be taking out a gun in the middle of a service for someone who'd been gunned down and shoot somebody in the church. That's totally unheard of. Nobody does that. Whatever about the code of the streets in shooting Pop in the first place and breaking that code, nobody takes out a gun in a church and does it. So glad that Luke came in and crushed that gun in her handbag. A nice little touch there, and stopped Aisha from killing anybody in the church.
Yeah, he had a big thing about crushing guns in this episode. Or just actually the last couple of episodes, it's just like, nope, I am the gun.
You've
like
got
everything is
got to show. One of my favourite lines as well. I am the gun. A nice Luke Cage line there as well.
Well, interestingly, that was one of my notes, was the gun crushing Luke. In the church, and also Zip, where he gets fired at and he just bends the barrel of the gun up. Really, he was in fine gun crushing form in this episode. And the other one is we have piggybacks going on in the police, piggybacks on the payroll, in the New York Police Department, a Russian doll of bent cops, basically, going from Sergeant McLean to Lieutenant Perez and Detective Raphael. It was like, how many coppers are on the payroll? I suspect Lieutenant Perez is probably on the payroll of Colon. I don't know. I think there might be a few, sort of mixed allegiances here, certainly given that we see Raphael turning down, a text or not responding to a text, of Cottonmouth's when he's getting the, shipment of guns to hand back to Colon.
It is interesting how quickly people who are on the payroll are no longer on the payroll when you run out of money, and how quickly they may turn on you when they have your goods for sale. You know, it looks like what's happening with Scarf here. He knows exactly how much money has been lost by Cottonmouth. He knows exactly where where he stands in terms of finances. So perhaps he's just wondering whether he's going to bring those guns over to Diamondback directly and just gotten mouth out completely from the transaction, you know, cause he is ignoring that text message from him that he's sending during the funeral, which again, another thing that's layering on the anger in
Absolutely.
Chris, do you have another point?
I don't have a point. I have a great note though. Did anyone else notice the movie reference in this episode?
Which one?
Well, there's obviously. I'll tell you, and then you can tell me if you actually notice it. Yeah, I'll explain.
Yeah.
Just so we can all look important and like we know stuff. There was a really great, full-on kind of garbage can beatdown,
Right.
that was dished out here, and as soon as I saw that, I just thought of Godfather, where like, you know, Sonny Corleone kind of is beating the hell out of the wife beating Carlo in The Godfather 1.
Yes.
And this literally, I was almost like, I think scene for scene, where they jump out of the car, throw him over the banister into the trash cans, and then just wail on him. Which, they basically did that, wailed on the guy, and then ran away. I think they took some money, and that was about it. I'm like... So,
I said, go ask Luke Cage.
yeah, it's kind of like... it was kind of like a drive-by beating, kind of go...
Pretty much.
Bye! Ask Luke Cage! Like, you kind of go... Weirdest fight ever. Can you imagine if you were that guy just going, huh, they said something about a puke in a cage and a mage? I don't know. I think he's talking magic. Anyway, I got completely thought about Corleone and I just loved it.
Nice little film touch there.
If anyone, now, again, I could be completely, as with any of my references and a lot of these are in my head, but I bet you at some point someone, Chio will probably say one of his inspirations was old school mafia films, and I will jump up and down and go, "Told you so, told you so."
Well, it is. It's a great reference and a great movie. I have to check that out again. I haven't watched that in a little while. So, yeah, good catch there.
Absolutely. We believe you.
Yeah,
Definitely.
That's all that matters.
I've just got one note real quick, cause I liked it. It was one of the funny moments, I suppose, in the episode, as one of the ladies of Harlem walks up to Luke Cage to tell him who shot, the guy who was sitting on the car being, interviewed by police. Yeah. And she goes to him, it was Aisha who shot him. And Luke says, where did she get the gun? And she goes, I plead the eighth. Yeah. Loved that little moment. Thought it was really funny. And also I had to look up what is the Eighth Amendment. And I think it's really good for Luke Cage because the Eighth Amendment is the law in the US that says you can have no excessive bail, no excessive fines, and no cruel or unusual punishment. What's happened to Luke Cage except he's been put in prison, didn't get bail, had experimentation done on him in prison. So he has definitely had cruel and unusual punishment while in prison. Thought it was a nice little touch that they particularly chose that.
Completely. I think, yeah, exactly. And it was a lovely, funny moment. And again, doing the one thing that the writers have done so well in this, which is taking very hard drama, realistic drama, and then actually throwing the levity in there where it deserves to be.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah.
So points and notes done, guys. Time to get your rep.
Okay, I'm going to the gym. Fine.
John, do you defend this episode of Luke Cage?
I do defend this episode of Luke Cage. It will come as no surprise. I'm giving this a 4 Judas bullets out of 5. This is just really strong, great stuff for me. You know, I just love, it's the big, kind of initial face-off, I presume. I'm sure there's more to come, but this is the big face-off, and it's been building between Cottonmouth and Luke Cage. We have the reintroduction of Claire Temple here in such a cool way. Mm-hmm. And of course, you know, we have Pop's memorial, but for me as well, this episode was so much about, Shades and his relationship with Cottonmouth as well as Luke Cage's relationship with Cottonmouth. And I think all this, under the umbrella of, you know, fighting for the soul of Harlem was just a really good, like episode. And as I said, I just love the frostiness of Misty Knight towards Luke Cage, despite everything. And despite that we're all seeing as the audience and that she's not in on, and she's a cop and she's suspicious and she's trying to follow the evidence, that relationship there is fantastic. I just enjoying all these different relationships together. And it was a great, episode. And of course we see a Judas bullet at work as well.
Absolutely.
Which means blood and liver and kidneys going everywhere. But Christopher, do you defend this episode of Luke Cage?
I do defend this episode. I don't want to score it because I've been starting to score, and I think it takes away some of it from my own head about how it's yes or a no, or to watch or not watch. Mm-hmm. This for me now is the culmination of 4 episodes, and yes, somewhat of a slow burn in some areas in terms of they wanted to lay down the framework of a lot of kind of relationships, of a lot of the story, a lot of the backgrounds. And they are doing it gradually. So they're giving you they're building up the foundation while at the same time layering in a new story or thread into it each time. So as we get to the end of how are they going to kill an indestructible man with a Judas bullet, it seems, they introduce the Claire thread. Or at the end of the Pop's legacy discussion, when that comes to a close, we're now getting Luke is building his own legacy. As the legacy of Cottonmouth comes to an end, we get the legacy of Diamond Mike or Shades taking over. So for me, this was a great culmination. I think we're probably 1 episode away. Episode 6 will be where it all kind of comes through. It kind of, as a whole, it comes to the juxtaposition of everything that we need, that the 2 controlling forces come to a head. It looks like we can get that that's probably as far as they could do it. Now, they could string it out to episode 8 or 9 or who knows. I think kind of 6 is a fair bit. We're finishing our Act 1, we're going into Act 2 kind of job. I still don't like Scarf. I don't like that story. It's very tried, done, and dusted, but it acts as a plot point, and there's what can you do for it? But it acts as an evolution of how Misty Knight will become potentially an ally for the Defenders and leave the Heroes of Hire and leave the police force. And I know you need these things, but again, I still just don't like that storyline. Right. Shoot me. I don't know.
No, we won't shoot you.
Okay.
Jeez. You're not that bad, Chris.
Thank you.
He won't be back next episode listening.
I'm sorry. This is my last will and testament.
That's dark. That is super dark.
And not a very good one. You didn't leave anything to anybody.
No, I know.
Anyway,
I just talked about Luke Cage. And then the last bit of my kind of wrap up and why I defend it is more and more I'm starting to like the style, and we discussed a very first episode for me, which was how gritty and realistic this universe, that this Harlem they are setting up. It is a true this is Harlem right now for us day in, day out. And they've transplanted that with a good degree of understanding of, okay, it has to be a superhero show, so there's a guy with lifting boulders over his head and bouncing bullets off himself. Mm-hmm. But it's facing today's issues, and I still love that. And like any war-torn country, if you're in the middle of the war, the human nature is, when there is despair, you will crack jokes, you will bring levity to the situation. This is the truth. So Chio Croker and the rest of the writers behind this are saying, yes, this is a dark, grim, this is gang war, this is what it's like, but hey, we're going to make a joke about the 8th Amendment. Because that's what someone silly who doesn't know what the amendment is will say. And it makes everyone laugh. And that's, I think, yes, why I defend it. They bring all these great points together. Are they doing everything right? Some cases, yes. Some cases, no. Some cases, yeah, just with a bit more work. But overall, this episode as a whole, it was great. First 5 episodes, still great. Haven't yet seen, it's a slow burn of some things, but overall, yes. Derek, do you defend this episode, and would you give it its rep?
I would definitely give this its rep. It's worked hard, this episode, to really make sure that you know exactly where all the players are here. to cut down Cottonmouth to his lowest level so far. He has lost everything. His money's gone. His reputation's now gone. The other thing that's the most important to him. So Harlem's gone because of the speech that Luke made. That's what it feels like. He's lost Harlem. So the only thing he has left is the club. And he's already being recommended in this episode that it's going to be, it should be torn away from him so that he can get back to working his way back up from the bottom again. I love what they've done in this episode. I think it's really, really good. Not going to say too much more. I think we've talked about it a lot, but yeah, I'd highly defend this episode. Definitely. So lastly, as usual, we've got a little bit of feedback in, to talk about before we close out the episode. First up, Jim Carrey says about this episode, if I was Luke Cage, I'd probably say, sweet Christmas, man. You don't respect Pop. Just last week, you sat in his barber chair and then walked away without paying, making your other guy take the money out and eventually pay him. It's a really good point,
Actually,
Jim.
yeah.
This guy constantly says how much money he has. He constantly says how much he controls Harlem and how great a guy he is, yet he wouldn't even pay for a haircut in Pop's barbershop. Which is quite a good point. Good catch there, Jim.
Absolutely. Great catch.
Joel Sharpton also commented. He said, Mike Coulter has nailed it the whole series, but he particularly shone in this episode. God, this is such a good show. I totally agree with him. I still think my favorite moment for Mike Coulter so far has been at the end of episode 2, where he does that speech outside of Crispus Attucks, where he's speaking about the history of black culture in the area of Harlem. I think that scene just had so much power to it. And then when he takes the gun and shoots himself in the stomach to show that he is bulletproof and bullets don't scare him. A great, powerful scene for Mike Coulter. But this scene in front of all of the residents of Harlem is a fantastic scene. The eulogy scene, I thought it was absolutely brilliant. Really, really good Mike Coulter scene.
Completely agree. I say this with a grain of despair, but Charlie Cox, Kristen Ritter, Mike Coulter, these guys are fantastic leads. And I know, much like our beautiful Agent Carter, they will go on, if ever, to do greater things. I actually just watched Hayley Atwell in Conviction in her latest, and it was amazing. And it's a fantastic show, and it shows that these guys, they can, in theory, sometimes get pigeonholed as these superheroes. But then you look at Stephen Amell, who's now gone on to do films, and Robbie Amell, who's gone on to do other films. Maybe not, some of them not be great, but they were still films.
Yes, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, I think,
yes,
was Stephen Amell's, wasn't it?
It was, but he's coming on to do more. Him and Robbie Amell are doing other ones.
Hey, they're better than my movies. So.
It's true.
And Charlie Cox came from Boardwalk Empire as well. So, even looking back as well as forward, superb casting.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Absolutely. Let's hope Finn Jones can complete the quintuplet.
Yes. But I also do hope that, much like Jessica Jones won one of the Emmys for opening credits, I think that these guys now should be put up for the best leading man, best leading woman, actor, actress, whichever categories they have, because we've gone past a point in time where these actors are just doing a superhero show. Mm-hmm. You're doing a dramatic film, TV show, connected Absolutely. Universe, where you are, much like Clark Gregg in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., he's gone on to do things, and he was doing stuff before, but these guys are such leading presences that they deserve at least to be considered, I think, up against some of these, like Boardwalk Empire or Game of Thrones, etc., etc.
Absolutely.
Night of the Flowers.
Yes, Finn Jones.
Fantastic.
Coming soon on March 17th.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks for that comment, Joel. It was really good to hear from you. And thanks, Jim.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. Thanks, Joel, for the feedback. That's really, really good stuff. Great catches. If you want to send in your feedback, you can go to our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/Defenders TV podcast, or directly to feedback@Defenders TV podcast. If you want to get yourselves on the podcast, you can also leave an audio feedback, 90 seconds. Just go to our website, and on the right-hand side, just leave your voicemail there. Just go to defenderstvpodcast.com. And of course, as always, we're on Twitter @DefendersCast.
Next week, we'll be back for episode 6.
Yep, we'll be back on Friday, the 21st of October, with episode 6 of Luke Cage. Suckers Need Bodyguards.
Alright, guys. Well, on that note...
Yeah, I think that's a wrap. Sorry, I mean a rep.
Oh, I was going to say, Sucker's getting out of here.
Thanks so much for listening, everyone. We'll speak with you next time. Bye.
And Chris, the next suit of mine that gets damaged, I'm charging you.
Ah, boom.
Bye.
It's a miracle. Breakable. Bye.
You think I'm holding back? You think I'm holding back? I'm out to save you.
Thanks for listening to Defenders TV Podcast, a TV podcast industries production. Our theme tune's provided by the wonderful Mississippi McDonald and the Cottonmouth Kings. If you want to help out the podcast and you've enjoyed listening to us, there's some really easy ways to do it. If you can share our episodes through your social media channels like Twitter, Reddit, Facebook, or Google+, that gets some extra listeners into us. If you want to leave us a review on iTunes or a rating, just leave a 5-star rating, click the button, or go to iTunes through defenderstvpodcast.com/iTunes. We'll take you straight to our page and leave us a review or a rating there. That always helps out independent podcasts. And also, as always, we love to hear your feedback about the shows. Interaction with our audience is what we really, really love. So you can send us feedback to feedback@defenderstvpodcast.com. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.